Am I back this time? Am I back? You got my back? Am I back? Could I be back now? What about being back? What if we're back? Is Backstreet back? Are the boys back? We're back in town. We're back on the back. Internet died, dropped. I don't know that it was the internet though. I feel like XSplit is it's weird. It's weird what's going on around here. I'm back in blacks as a secret to every pony. To finish what I was saying before, apparently there's an internal policy at the 911 of Detroit that assault and battery when it sounds like a domestic abuse, not important. Den Deer, Cheering 100 Pawn, you're gonna receive a game. Am I? Am I? Is it gonna have to do with 911 and police response? Pawn, it was your internet. You went offline on Steam and Discord also. Yes, it definitely my internet went down, but I don't know whom to blame for that. Because I've switched routers out, so it shouldn't be the router. Houston, we have a problem, says this is a secret to every pony. I've switched routers out, so it really shouldn't be my hardware at this point, and we're down to Restream.io and XSplit, and I've been in a lot of contact with Restream.io, and they've done tests on their end. They've actually got my account, my broadcasting account for them on a special monitor mode where they get like second by second data on it retroactive, like historical log. So they have shown that basically XSplit will suddenly stop sending frames for about a second, and then it will try and shove all the frames that it missed out at once, and then it just dies. My signal just dies there. And now I'm seeing that, I started dropping frames, my internet went down. Maybe it was just that the internet went down, or maybe it has to do with XSplit doing something so horribly wrong on the networking end that it's, my router had to reboot. Yeah, I did have to reboot my router. I have no idea. This has been going on for so long, and I have gone down every rabbit hole that I know how to go down. All of my equipment is as sound as I can possibly verify it to be sound. Restream.io has done a lot to try and track the issue. They've got logs. They told me exactly what's going on their end, what they're seeing in the logs. So in terms of them like dropping signals, which they have done before, it seems like XSplit is doing something that it shouldn't be doing sometimes, and then this happens. I am getting off of XSplit, people. I'm getting off of XSplit and going back to OBS, but in order to do that, I have to destroy the 2PC live streaming setup. That's what I have to do. Den D has sent me a gift. 7 billion humans! Automate swarms of office workers to solve puzzles inside your very own parallel computer made of people. A thrilling follow-up to the award-winning human resource machine, now with more humans. So you like seeing me play the programming games for hours and end, scratching my head and getting angry because I don't understand. Cool, we can do more of that. I loved the aesthetic and also the challenge of Human Resource Machine when we played that on the channel. So having the follow-up is definitely something. But honestly, if you guys would let me, I would play fucking Exapunks all the way to the end on these live streams. We've got both Trash World Newses are opened now. I've got issue 1 and issue number 2. Thank you so much, Noah, for sending, for passing this game along and sending it in the deluxe package where I actually get physical items that I can look through. I would do that right up to the end and code everything that they wanted me to code just to see where the story's going and to do everything. So 7 billion humans is something that we'll absolutely bring to the live stream. Thank you so much. What the fuck was I saying before? Thank you so much, Dendy. I've been working this thing with the live streams dropping and internet problems from both ends. Right now, I can tell you this: if I try to go to Comcast, and for those who don't live in Murica, you might not be aware that Comcast is our internet service provider. It's one of the majors. It is the biggest of them all, dominating the marketplace next to Verizon and AT&T in America in terms of internet service providers is Comcast. They provide me my internet service. Comcast is Xfinity. That's the we're selling it name. which they changed over because Comcast is also known as the worst company in America. It has the lowest review for a major company, the lowest customer satisfaction rate. My internet service provider, and this is definitely on their end, it's their fault. Because it was happening when I had a different router in, so I swapped routers. I had a spare, I swapped a new router in, and I worked for 6 days. I could get to these websites. Now I can't. Now I cannot. And I have called Comcast 4 or 5 times, 6 maybe. They've called me on the issue. I can't get anyone who's not just some idiot, sitting at a call center going, have you tried plugging it in, unplugging it? Did you turn it off and on again? Ooh, did you clear your cookies? Literally, the first guy I talked to said, well, could you try doing it in Internet Explorer instead of Chrome? Maybe it's a Chrome issue. So I opened up Internet Explorer, got the same access denied message. Then he said, okay, could you clear the cookies in your browsers? Now, for those of you who are not familiar, who are not technically, you just don't know, cookies exist per browser, okay? The cookies that you have for Chrome do not apply to the cookies that you have in Internet Explorer. So the fact that I open Chrome and it doesn't work there, and then I open Internet Explorer, negates the concept of, could you clear your cookies? Especially when I had told him I have never opened Internet Explorer on this computer. Literally, when he asked me to open it opened up to, welcome to Windows 10, because I do not touch IE. Stay the hell away from me. But yeah, this is another possibility, is that it's just my internet provider. Hey, let's go look at some products at HomeDepot.com. I want to pick up some wood. You don't have access to HomeDepot.com on this server. There are a number of little, just this and that's around the internet, just certain places that I have no explanation for why, but I can't go to them, including the website of my internet service provider, where I would log in and make a payment and shit. And they want me to do things on my end, because it's not on my side, people, because I pulled out my router, which meant you had to reassign me a new IP, you got a new MAC address for the router, stuff like that. Your end reset, my end reset, it worked for 10 days, and then it did this again. So, what are we talking about? This is what happens when net neutrality dies, says Hologram 1. This is what it feels like when doves cry. Yeah. FCC, do you want to talk about that then? I still have a story to tell about my father that's a personal story, and it'll be fun and less complainy. But can we look that up? FCC, I want to know the poll results for net neutrality. Okay. Here we go. This is what I looked up before. This poll gave Americans a detailed case for and against the FCCs. I've looked this one up before. Let's look at another one. So this is from 2017, and there's the man himself, isn't it? Chairman Pai. This poll gave Americans a detailed case for and against the FCC's net neutrality plan. The reaction amongst Republicans was striking. So the survey by the university's Program for Public Consultation and Voice of the People, a nonpartisan polling organization, concluded 83% of Americans do not approve of the FCC proposal, which was to deregulate the internet. Just 16% said they approved. And that, by the way, that poll that they ran was heavily criticized for submissions that came in that were copy-paste submissions, which is going to happen in a lot of this kind of stuff. Copy-paste submissions, people set up web pages that are just like, if you support this band, click this button and we'll email this off for you. So copy-paste submissions, fine. But you had to list your full legal name and your age and things like that, to just, not really specific information, but just to identify, okay, who are you? And what they found was a lot of the people who were voting against this thing were dead. Recently demised, recently deceased. So there was some, issues about the votes against and whether there was validity to the votes against, and even with a clearly, middle, in the dark of the night attempt to skew the results, 83% of voters did not want them to deregulate the internet. Do you know what they did? They deregulated the internet, which begs the question, why even fucking ask? Because this says the survey by the university's program for public consultation and voice of the people, a nonpartisan polling organization. I don't know if this is like a independent thing or if the FCC, we'd have to read the whole article, if the FCC had them run the poll or not. But I know that the FCC directly itself, like half a dozen times or more over the course of 10, 12 years, kept asking that question over and over again, like a little kid who won't accept, no, we're not going to Chuck E. Cheese today. Your sister has a dentist appointment. Okay. Hey, after the dentist appointment, can we go to Chuck E. Cheese? That's what the FCC did to the American people for over a decade. Kept asking, what if we deregulated the internet? No! Okay. But what if the internet was less regulated? No! Okay, sorry. Hey, what if regulations are... No! And in the end, they ran a final poll. Majority American consensus came back again. They were just trying to get us to the point where we'd be like, I'm not even fucking answering you anymore, okay? I'm done. I'm not filling out these polls anymore. I can't bother. That's what they were trying to do, trying to burn people out. And even after the attempt to burn people out, 80-some% of Americans show up and say, no, do not do that. We, the people, whom you serve, whom you are of, by, and for, according to the concept of government, of the people, by the people, for the people, we tell you, order you, don't do it. And they went, okay, well, we have asked a lot, so fuck you then, we did it anyway. We just deregulated. I turned the knob that deregulates the internet. By the way, Chairman Pai here, he used to work for Verizon? Yeah. Before he got elected, before he was appointed, rather, not elected, but appointed to run the FCC, to be employed by the very people who this groundbreaking legislation that resulted in the overthrow of the people's FCC, this fella used to be employed by the folks who he was going to deregulate. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if when Chairman Pai hits the streets again out of the government, if he finds himself a really cushy job as a advisor, paying, say, $200,000-$300,000 a year for advising, where he does most of his advising from the golf course. You know what I'm talking about? One of those situations. We have a literal overthrow of the American government that is unchallengeable, and there's a lot that you can say about, well, there's an overthrow of the American government. Look, that's an overthrow of the American government. But this is inarguable. When you run a poll, and the FCC did, and the poll comes back and says, don't do that. Like, strong majority response. If the Congress could vote 83% in consensus, the president couldn't say, no, we're not doing it, because that's such a strong consensus by the American public. But the FCC, our FCC, they did what they wanted and what their friends at Comcast, Verizon, and AT&T wanted, as opposed to what we wanted. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know what the rest of this survey is about or what the rest of this article is about, but yeah, 80-some% on the final one. That was just the last poll. We could go and look at all the other polls that came through. You guys have solar kits to charge your phone, asked Andy? Fucking FCC, have you heard the latest, says Groggles? What's that? Love the video of Pai eating popcorn. Pai eating? There should be a contest where it's just a video of that guy, Chairman Pai, eating. And then it would be pie eating contest, and then you just cut to him eating in various locations. It's still a competitive market if they could reach you within half a mile of new cables. Sound good? Yeah. What? FCC did what stupid people often do and tried to pretend they were smart. Aha, they were using reverse psychology, but nobody was. When's this American Civil War V2 happening, says it's the secret to every pony? Soon. Soon. As a matter of fact, here's how soon it's coming for you. Trump resistance quote. Not Trump resistance movement quote. It's a very, like, there it is, New York Times opinion. I am part of the resistance inside the Trump administration. Have you heard of this? I got a lot of people out of this country. I don't follow the news at all, so my mom had to send me this, but have you heard of this? President Trump is facing a test to his presidency unlike any faced by a modern American leader. It's not just that the special counsel looms large or that the country is bitterly divided, or even that his party might well lose the House to an opposition hell-bent on his downfall. The dilemma is that many of the senior officials in his own administration are working diligently from within to frustrate parts of his agenda and his worst inclinations. And this is a letter written, open letter, from someone, from an anonymous to the public source. But the New York Times confirms that they know their identity, and it's very valid that they have to remain anonymous because otherwise they'd be caught and lose their job. But an open letter from a Republican who, in his little thing here, speaks very openly about, this isn't a resistance the way those damn libtard cuck Democrats resist. This is a good, solid Republican resistance. Writing about how basically the people around Trump are doing everything that they can to marginalize his impact on the country by insulating their own departments from what he might do and not listening to him and finding ways to twist his words, whatever they got to do. Groggles, updating me on the FCC. The FCC's latest finding, it's not an effective monopoly for an internet service provider if another ISP could, maybe, lay half a mile of cables to reach you. Really? It's not an effective monopoly. We don't have effective monopolies, apparently. Have the FCC, have they looked into the cost of internet every other fucking place on the planet? And the quality of internet that they get, the amount of bandwidth that gets pumped through for what they pay. Because a monopoly is kind of apparent and evident when the prices are fucking insane. And an oligopoly, where you've got multiple competitors refusing to compete in the same space, is apparent as well when you see those prices. And when you see things like two competitors not competing in major markets, which I believe, if it's still the case, it used to be the case at least, that I believe it was Comcast and Verizon? Comcast and one of the others. Comcast is available in either LA or New York. New York. And the other one is available in the other one, and they don't compete for those two major markets. For New York City and Los Angeles. Just decided, I guess Comcast or whoever decided, New York City, there's just not enough people there to really bother competing in that marketplace. LA, they don't have enough money out there for us to bother laying our own tracks. Now if only those resistance people would do something about the literal concentration camps. You mean of the Hispanic children? No, those aren't concentration camps, they're re-education camps, says the Secretary Pony. Yeah, we've got ourselves one hell of a... Fox News, man, talk about a modern incarnation of the, USSR's, what do they call it? Propaganda, Ministry of Propaganda. We've got Fox News for that. And, people say that and it's become like a joke and it's become it's one-sided stuff. That is a significant indicator of bad shit happening. I've recently read studies by military officials whose job it is to predict what's going to happen in nations, to look down the road and say, where does this nation stand? Are they on a stable footing? Are they on the verge of civil war? And they've been talking about America by the way that we usually calculate whether or not these foreign countries are, going to have an uprising. We're there. And it was actually probably Groggles or one of you who brought it to my attention, and I went looking for more information and read about it. But I've read these reports now where they're talking about, when we see a nation that has sort of multiple conflicting partisan outlets for news, that's an indicator of a civil war coming on. when you have outlets that aren't just telling the news, but are telling a version of the news that's best for their side, be it for politics or religion or whatever, that's an indication of a civil war to us. And what we have right now in America is very much like you can tune into the news you want to hear. It's not the news of the day. It's not just what happened. There's no agreement on the concept of what is a lie, an outright lie, and what is something that you just let someone say and you let people decide. We have no concept of just what a fact is or truth is because we've got so much partisan outlets that are presented as news. I mean, there's always going to be partisan, especially in the internet era. You're going to have people telling the stories and spin and all that kind of stuff, but it is a somewhat recent incarnation for us to have entire news outlets, not just news outlets, but like giant controlling hundreds of local news offices, organizations, corporate oversight, sending down news stories and telling people how to tell the news in a way that represents their own best interests. That is a relatively new thing, and it foretells, it speaks of what's to come. And I am hoping for a civil war. We need it, you know? You say, oh, there's going to be violence, there's going to be people dying, there's going to be bombs exploding, and, you know, people caught in the crossfire who didn't. Yeah, well, it's got to happen, though, you know? It's like having ants. Worse than that, it's like having termites, you know? Like, the whole house is going to fucking go if we don't cut out sections of the house. If we don't address the problems that exist today, the whole fucking house is going to collapse. And maybe that's where it's going to have to go. Maybe that's what's going to have to happen, is that the whole fucking house is going to have to collapse, and then at least we'll be able to rebuild. But this isn't sustainable, what we're doing right now in this country. The lies that we're telling ourselves and telling each other on the virtue of capitalism, on the virtue of, well, I can make money doing this, so I'm doing it. If I can win, then that makes it virtuous. This can't go on. We can't continue to have 80% of convicts be black and Hispanic and pretend as though there's no problem with, you know, racism, systemic racism, just not address that fact. We can't have people sitting in prison who are there for the rest of their lives on convictions from the drug war era in the 80s, 90s, where the crackdown was like, if we catch you smoking a little bit of weed, you're in for the next 50 years. We can't leave those people just sitting there. Like, what they were convicted of is now legal. We can't continue to have the draconian laws that we have around drug use. It's a problem. People get into it, they start using it, they don't know what they're getting into, and now they're fucking gone, and now it's a chemical addiction, and you don't punish it away. You help people walk away. You want to make a better nation, a more secure nation, drugs are going to be with us. What are you going to do? You find a way to integrate people. You find a way to make it so that people who are currently addicted to drugs can have a semi-normal life. So that they're not going down the dark alleys and meeting with the unsavory characters and getting shot and being afraid and shooting other people and robbing people and shit. You make a world that acknowledges, yes, this is a problem. Yes, it's with us. Yes, it's probably going to always be with us in one form or another. Let's address it instead of just trying to sweep it under the rug, because it doesn't sweep under the rug. I live under the rug in Detroit. I see where you swept it. I'm not having a good time with it. We can't, this is not going to work. We can't continue to have this country that we have. Something has to happen. It's not going to be peaceful. It's not going to be legislated away. It's not going to be, well, we voted enough people in who are sane and they're going to pull it back over the course of, what, the next 600 years? Because that's how long it would take to undo this. Like, the reason why civil war is imminent in this country, whether it comes during the Trump administration or after it 20 years, the reason it's imminent is because this thing is so far gone off the rails. There's no pulling it back. There's no legislating away from it. There's no movement of politics that can happen. The problems are embedded so deeply in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, in the populace's sense of, you know, I'm a Democrat and I'm a Republican. I'm red tie, I'm blue tie. and their identification with these two parties that are doing nothing for them, that are comprised of a few speckling of individuals who actually believe in something and think they're doing good work, and then just a majority of people who they're not fit to serve. They're not there to serve you. They're not there to serve the people who elected them, let alone the people who didn't elect them, which, by the way, you've also been elected to serve. Neither party is interested in that. Our elected representatives work part-time for us. Wouldn't you think that they'd at least work like a 40-hour work week for the American public once you elected them? You'd think that they'd work a 50 or a 60, really, but I'd be fine with a 40. But our elected representatives go off to the Senate, and they spend 20, 25 hours a week working for us, and 20, 25 hours a week working for their party, cold-calling millionaires begging for money. Working the cities, going down and shaking hands and meeting people at fucking, Joe's Crab Shack, and hey, how you doing? Oh, I hope you'll be out at the next thing. Oh, by the way, it's $5,000 a plate today, to support my campaign. We do good work for you. That is the smallest pinpoint prick of what is wrong here. That is the top level, not even the top level. There are so many levels of depth to how broken this country is, to how broken our government is, to how unfixable it's become. You can't legislate it away. There's no chance in hell. Between the Electoral College and redistricting, engineering, your electoral districts so that you can have a weak... You have a minority in the district, but you win it anyway because of how you drew the lines. We've got representatives who put forward legislation to try and solve the problem of people showing up at the polls who aren't the right people. They're impersonating someone else and voting, which is statistically observably not a problem, and they're legislating laws that disenfranchise hundreds of thousands, if not millions of voters in order to correct a problem that isn't a problem because those voters are poor and they're in the Democratic camp most of the time. So Republican senators are pushing forward legislation to disenfranchise people and they sell it to the public and the public's just stupid enough to eat it. And it's this is what I'm talking about is just the election end of things. And I could go on in just the election side of things, in just our democracy, how broken that is. But that's just democracy, tiniest little, the election cycle. Who's representing us, how they're representing us, and how we choose them. And that is the tiniest little caveat of how our government works. Between healthcare and military and the city of Detroit, local government. The 911, you call them and they don't come. There is so much broken and so much wrong and no way to fix it. Civil war is imminent because this slate needs to be cleared. This government needs to fall apart. This country, as it was designed, has failed. And whether that's because we went in a direction that was contrary to the intentions of the founders, or because we did exactly what the founders wanted, doesn't matter. It's a failed experiment. As of today, people, in a country where obesity is a huge problem, you've got people starving to death in the middle of winter somehow on the streets. You've got people burning themselves alive on accident because they're homeless and they're trying to light a fire in an abandoned house so that they can stay warm. And we've got a president who's willing to call any other nation in the world a shithole? The reason why civil war is imminent is because when you look around, there is so much that is off the rails. And there's nothing you can do. It's civil war comes in the face of hopelessness. When there is no hope for tomorrow, when there is nothing you can do, when you've been backed into the most corner part of the corner, and there's no path forward, and there's nothing for you, and there's nothing for the people around you, and you can't fight back. Then you start fighting back. When you can't fight back in a way that's protest and that's politics and that's get out the vote, when that's gone and that's not going to work for you, that's when violent revolutions take place. And that's why America is destined, at the point that we stand here today, destined for civil war. Destined for what they will call terrorism and what will actually be revolution. Now, I haven't looked at chat in a long time. Quite frankly, Pawn said Hologram 1 some time ago. You just need to get the fuck out of America. England might be a bit kooky, but it's still one of the overall best countries for not breaking down into civil war and avoiding psychopathic bastards. Yes, you have very few. Very few. I mean, that's the thing that I have said about Canada, because across the river in Windsor, Detroit and Windsor are a river apart, and the river is very small. And across the river in Windsor, if there's a gun death in the year, it's headline news and it's amazing. Wow, we had a gun death. Somebody shot somebody else intentionally. Not like a hunting accident. They actually killed them with a gun. They have 1 or 2 a year. That's their average. And then you come across the river, 1/8 of a mile across the river, and there's a gun death a day, at least. How the hell does that work? Well, the people in Detroit live in the most corner part of the corner. Their backs are against the wall. They can't call the police. Knowing you can't call the police, if something comes up, if somebody gets in your face, if somebody chooses you, you just kill them. Like that's the mentality that people get into in this country, or in this city in particular. Just kill them, because you realize, as I did, that if you let them live, if you shoot to wound, what do you do when they come back? You can't call the police. They're not going to be here, as we looked at the response times. We shoot to kill because that's how we defend ourselves. Let's see. I want to, read through chat real quick, and then we'll have ourselves another live stream break, and we'll come back and I'll tell you the story of my dad and try and be a little bit more upbeat. The issue with civil war is that will be state war, led by state governors, and then the sitting president will be validated in staging U.S. troops on the mainland. Yeah, it doesn't, the thing is, for me, Groggles, it's not an argument about whether or not it's just, or whether it's a good idea or not. It's coming. That's where I stand right now. It's coming. And honestly, I want to be a part of it. I absolutely want to be a part of it. Because I feel it's time. It's long past time, actually. But it's coming, regardless of whether it's a good idea, regardless of whether, you say, well, violence that meets violence will only cause more violence. And, if you destroy your oppressors, you will only become someone else's oppressor. You'll become what you hate, all that kind of stuff. That's, upbeat sounding logic, but it doesn't really matter at this point. There's not really another path forward. And I would just like to get it over with and get started, Because I feel like it's only going to be worse the longer that it waits, the longer that it takes for it to kick in. The British are just too lazy to cause chaos at Hologram 1, except on footy night. I mean, with Brexit around to fall apart completely, the UK might not be a good idea, says the Secretary Pony. Oh, I wouldn't worry about it in that sense. Brexit isn't going to fall apart. We are nowhere near a deal, says Pony. Oh, God, you got your own politics to worry about. Brexit isn't as bad as many people make out. We trade with you on WTO tariffs. It will be an inconvenience if we have to with Europe, but not the end of the world. Politics is hard to understand, but we all know what's going to happen with Trump. That is easy enough to see. A bullet? What are you talking about? The pound is better than it has been in multiple years. KSPJT saying, that's like saying the operation was a success, but the patient has died. Hologram 1. What did Hologram 1 say? I can't. I got to get through some of this. As much as people freaking panic, Brexit is going well. Hyperbole, what manifest issue will cause the collapse of the UK? Okay, you guys just went off about Brexit. Cool. That's better. I thought maybe you were, Dendi said, putting in the high court system where people can vote for a semi-president within a think tank once another signs off sounds much more everything proof. I don't know. Explain how placing a border between North and South won't cause any problems at all, says the Secretary. Yeah, you guys are Brexiting hard. Bye, KSBJT, said Hologram 1, is either a massive troll. I don't read any corrupt newspaper take. Oh, I got you all going politically. And not even about what I was talking about. Apparently, we're all on the same page with the idea that civil war is coming in America and it's overdue, because it's far more interesting to talk about, Brexit, which is apparently still it could break either way. This one's already decided, yeah, you're right, Pawn. It's gonna burn down, might as well burn today. We're gonna take a 7-minute break. We'll be back thereafter. Stay with me. I'm going to bring it more upbeat and make it a little bit less political as I tell you about my dad and the epic saga of how he tried to leave and couldn't. It will be very exciting. Very. That's what I just said. Back in 7, don't go anywhere, Pawn not out. Hello, I am the Ronan Pawn. Welcome back to twitch.tv/Ronan Pawn live stream on twitch.tv/Ronan Pawn. On-screen chat? Unfortunately, I can still see the Osk. What do you got against Osk? Osk is great. I made this Osk just for you. I designed it. Just a little bit up there. Just a little there. I designed it just for you. Trying to time the bounces. So mad. Get triggered. I'm triggered. We're all triggered. There's talk of politics and the impending civil war in America. It's gotta happen, people. It's gotta happen. There's no other place to go with it, really. But we could go, instead, to talking about my father. And they're still trying to add 7 billion humans to my library, as Steam will do. Thank you again, Den D, for gifting me 7 billion humans. What am I going to do with them? I guess I could recruit them for the civil war that's a-coming. Start forming the resistance now. Come on, I'll start my civil war when you start yours. Well, what do you got to see? You don't need a civil war. You don't need a civil war about anything. Brexit. Just don't do it. Just, just don't do it. And just be like, yeah, it's stupid. Yeah, there's a vote in. We took a vote. Take another fucking vote. It's your country. For Christ's sake. But we've got rules. Fuck your rules. You make the rules. Take another vote. The morning after, nobody was on board for that. For Brexit. Just change it. For Christ's sake. Pawn, whenever you say talking about my dad, I start thinking you as Lucifer. I like that. I don't know where the connection is in your head. Not another vote, please, says Hologram 1. Yes, another vote. Have another vote on it. I think you're, mostly in agreement that we didn't mean that we wanted to leave the EU. We were just being English. It's what we do. Now, if I pull you over, let's see if we've got any pictures of something relevant. So here's my father. And there's the sign we were talking about earlier, where the city of Detroit and its agencies will demolish this structure, which is the one across the street, within 2 weeks of 8/08/18. That picture was taken on 08 plus 14. That was on the 22nd, I believe, so within 2 weeks. Was it on the day? I think that picture was taken on the day, because I went across the street to... No, it was after. I went across the street to save a tree. There was a tree outside in front of the house, and they said they were going to demolish it, and so I went out, and I pulled a tree. And, I don't know what the timing is, but at some point, I went over there and found that this sign had blown off in the wind. It had just been stapled on, and it had blown off in the wind. So I grabbed it out of the field and brought it back here and thought, okay, be a good poster for me. Considering that they did not demolish the structure within 2 weeks, and they still haven't demolished the structure, and now it's the 7th of the next month, and when I call them, they don't have a schedule for demolishing it anymore. So, City of Detroit paid a lot of money to, make that house safe to demolish, and then just didn't do it. But that's my dad, and in this shot, he's holding that up as he is in the process of demolishing another structure, and that is the wall that is in the rear room of the house, which is directly ahead of me right now. If I go through, there's a closet, there's the wall that the desk is against, and then there's the closet and the stairwell above it that goes up to the attic, and then the room that he is standing in the photo. And one of our ideas was, if we knock out this little dividing wall right here, we can make that whole room, make the whole sort of back of the house into that one room, except for the turn of the stairs going down to the basement. And so that's what he's in the process of doing there, and he has done it, and now he has moved out. At least for a bit. He's left. So he's on the way down to Florida to deal with some family matters, and before he did, he finished that room off, so now I'm living. My bedroom is now in the back of the house, because it's actually quite nice. And it's a nice change of pace, too, to be in a different room. And he had to leave his, 50,000-inch television behind. Didn't have any room for packing it, so now I've got a 50,000-inch television that I watch YouTube on over my Steam Link. Groggle says, many people were still on board, and if it comes to another, I know the majority of people I know will vote to leave purely on principle that we already answered that, says Groggles. I don't know. It seemed to me like the day after there was it was a really close vote, and for the Brexit thing, it seemed like the day after there was a preponderance of people going, I didn't think we'd actually pass it. I was just putting my middle finger up to the EU, because it's what we do. I don't know. You guys got way too much fucking, you know? Too much of that, don't you? We already answered the question. It's a ridiculous move. Fracture the most hopeful entity on the face of the planet, basically. All these different countries coming together, managing to maintain their independent national states, while also working together very closely, joining together under most of, with your, and we're not going to use that dollar because ours is better, although it is better. I understand why. Like, that's the most hopeful movement that we've had sort of in the century, was like, wow, Europe became one thing, and yeah, we want to leave. Well, I know you got your reasons, but your reasons don't, like, overwhelm the fact that that is a very hopeful thing that stands, in the face. Like, if we wanted to idealize and say we're moving toward a Star Trek universe, an egalitarian, like, not dystopia, utopia of the Star Trek universe, like, that was a stepping stone. That's the kind of thing that happens and then leads to more stepping stones, and then eventually we get to a one world, peoples. And Britain wants to leave, because why?
Well, we don't like that they've got control over our this and that and the other thing.
Could you make a new deal? You think you could work something like that? Something that gives you a little bit more independence? Or maybe just say, you know what? This is really good for the entire world and the species of the planet right now. Maybe, I don't care about your export things, We'll roll with it. If everybody's in, we're in. Could you do that for me? Pawn, we're in the Star Trek universe, the mirror universe. Oh, the one from DS9 says Bear Suit Lane? I'm guessing she's thinking of the one from Enterprise, actually. But so this is my father knocking down that wall. He knocked the wall down, built another wall with a door, hung the door frame, all beautiful, came out lovely. He even went back and painted the trim with some gray paint that he was using for another project. And the other project that he was doing for the past 2-3 weeks, where he was really into it anyway, was he came across his cousin gave him a boat. Like a year ago now, gave him a boat. And at the time, he was into the idea of getting the boat and going down to his old stomping grounds where he grew up and putting the boat in the water, because he spent his childhood on the water on a lake where his parents lived, and those are sort of the best memories that he's got. And, get back down there and relive the good times kind of thing, and get out and do some water skiing and just have fun and enjoy the water. He feels at home on the water. Living near the water and on the water. But that did not come to pass, and at a certain point he decided, well, the boat's just sitting there rotting away. I can scrap this for some money, and he scrapped it, and there was quite a bit of money in the aluminum of the boat. So he scrapped the boat, but what he still had was the trailer that tows the boat. You put the boat up on the trailer, and you hook the trailer on the ball of the truck, and you pull the boat around. He still had the trailer, and he knew he was heading to Florida. So he decided, I'm going to turn this boat trailer into a hauler trailer, into a car trailer, and cut off certain lengths of it, lengths of the steel square beam and everything like that in order to get it to the right length, and put a new ball on the front of it. And I think he put a new ball on his truck, and he laid in his own floor for it, and then built the sides and boxed it in, and just built, from hand, a trailer out of a boat trailer. And he was doing that for 2 or 3 weeks, and then it was getting time to when he wanted to leave to head down to Florida. So he spent a couple of days in the basement organizing his stuff in situ, in the basement, getting his tools in the places that they needed to be, and also rearranging the basement and opening it up so that once he moved his stuff out, he also moved the stuff that he was leaving behind into places where I now have huge area in my basement, and I got my drum kit set up. It's not. Oh no, it's actually back there, in the basement. But I got my drum kit set up down there. It's not. I haven't actually taken like the blanket off of it yet, but I can now get back to my drum kit and start playing some drums, and I'm looking forward to that. But spent, a considerable amount of time just slowly and methodically going through his stuff, getting everything organized, being ready for the pack day so that he could do the pack and then get in the car and drive and head out to Florida. And the day came, and the day was Wednesday. While I was doing the live stream, he was making the final moves on his pack. He packed everything up, and my family, in our blood, this fella and my blood, we have great packing genes. And I mean that sincerely, too. When I was tested in school, they've got those tests, standardized tests when you're in grade school. And I don't remember what it was, but it gives you, like, ratings on mathematical acuities in a visual sense, as well as in an, algorithmic sense. There's different fields of math. And visual mathematics, my scores were off the charts. So we have really good packing genes, and his pack was a beautiful pack. Let me tell you something, man. He got everything corner to corner. It's all holding everything else in. He used one thing upside down. It's got little legs on it. He put the other thing on the other side of that, so it's wedging those in, and they're not going anywhere. Beautiful pack. Gets it all packed up in the trailer. Gets it all backed up in the bed of the truck. Gets it all packed up in the cab of the cabin of the truck. Gets it all packed up. And I'm finishing my live stream. We're wrapping up here at about the point that he's done. And he reaches down to the driver's side, seat that's been pushed forward while he's been packing. And he pulls on that little plastic lever that releases the seat so you can pull it back. And it just snaps. Something snaps inside of it. It didn't break off in his hand, but something, the cable that runs through the seating in order to release the catches so that you can move your seat, forward and back mechanically. It gave way. And, I'm sure at the beginning, I wasn't there for it because we were still doing the live stream, but I'm sure at the beginning of this process, he was like, fuck. All right, what do I got to do here? And gets down under there and starts jiggling things and trying to trace where it's going and trying to work it out. By the time I get out there, he has lost his shit. Now, bear in mind, he's just spent the entire day packing. A day, by the way, the pack day, that has led up to, by 2 previous organization days, or maybe 3, or maybe sort of a week of light organization leading into a whole day of organization, getting ready for the pack, getting ready so that he could just do all of the things, get on the road when he wanted to, and the last thing, after everything's ready to go, pulls on the seat, it will not go back. It's stuck at, if this is back, okay, if you're leaning it back in this direction, it's stuck about there. And it won't move. So, your seat while you're driving would be like this. You'd be right on top of the microphone. Right on top of the steering wheel. So he can't leave with it in that condition. And I presume he spent about 15 minutes before I got out there trying to get the damn seat to release. So by the time I come out there, he is thermonuclear. Man, he is going off. Fucking goddamn, throwing stuff around and stuff. As well, he has every right, considering how that one last thing at the last possible second, the seat just has to go back and I can leave. I'm all ready. Just the seat. Just go back. I got, 2,000 miles between me and where I'm at. Just go back. Just go back. Won't go back. It will not go back. So yeah, he's about, a tick off of just like throwing heavy objects through the windows of the truck at the point that I come out there. And what ends up happening is we spend together an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, I'd estimate, destroying that seat. Trying this, trying that, and then eventually him in, thermonuclear mode going, fuck it, and just ripping the thing apart. And again, as well, it's like, hey, I'm just standing there like, I'm not going to try and talk you down from this. You earned this, you know? You put an intense amount of effort and energy and thought everything through and did everything, and then at this moment it all falls apart. You blow out the lines. You have earned it. Because this is some bullshit to happen right here, right now. I lied, Pong. You do look like your dad. You just don't have the hair. I just don't, I don't curl it like he does. Yeah, an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. And at a certain point in this thing, he's, like bending the metal frame of the chair up so that we can get to the mechanism, because there's like a spring-loaded thing, and maybe even there was a hydraulic piston in there. There's a spring-loaded deal, and there's a rod, and the rod goes into the other rod, and then there's these cables that come out, and they pull things away, and by this point, we've torn like the padding off of the seat. It's just bare seat at this point, and we still can't get this fucking thing to release. And so he's like bending metal edges up from the frame so that he can get, a better look at what the hell's going on here and get more access to more of it. And just nothing. It just won't give. And at a certain point while he's doing this, he's like getting lightheaded and grabbing onto stuff. And I'm like suddenly starting to think, Jesus, he's going to give himself a heart attack. Maybe I should try and calm him down or something. But honestly, you're in that situation, like, I ain't calming anybody down at this point. He's... I can't calm him down. But it was the first time in my life that I actually worried for a second. Is my dad going to give himself a heart attack right now? He didn't. But prying the metal up, and at a certain point in having removed basically all of the chair from the chair, I look down at it and see... Well, there's another wire. So the wire that comes from the back of it, where you do the latch when you're trying to get in from the back or something like that, you get the latch there, and they get the latch on the side, and they both got two wires, both of them broken. Those wires come up to here, and then there's a third wire that goes across to this side. Why does the third wire... Oh, shit. It has to release on both sides at once. It has to receive the pull. There's probably just a little... The way it probably works is there's two little metal flaps on the inside of the thing, and then, they just kind of like snap into positions, and when you pull on the flaps, the metal cables pull them in, in order to release it, and then you can move the seat back, and then when you let go, it rides on it until it finds another click point. It's probably how it works, but it does it on both sides. So the side that is buried into the center console needs to be accessed at the same fucking time as the first one. And I start working on that, and he goes inside, and then he comes back out with a hacksaw. And I step back, and here's how we solved it. He sawed through, imagine a chair, imagine, this chair, we'll say. Okay, so if it's a car chair, then in the inside, along here, would be rigid, metal, curled, thick brace. And then it's wrapped in fabric so you never feel it, but the rigid metal there. And it goes all the way down to like where it joins to the lower section and where it pivots. And he, with the hacksaw, cuts through the back piece until there's about that much metal left. Just that little wee bit of metal that's still holding it. And then I end up taking the bolts off the bottom of the chair that actually connect them to the body. Just 4. I was surprised that it was just 4, that it's not like over-engineered and over-designed. Take the bolts out, now we can twist the chair in place, but it's still connected to the center console. So we twist it into a position where he can get at it with. Now he's upgraded from the hacksaw. He broke apart his pack, which was also just, God, I did all this fucking work, and, and now I gotta take it apart, solve this issue. He gets in there, comes back with the sawzall, and cuts the other side to about that much of an inch of metal that's left holding the frame of the chair. And braces himself against the driver's side door that's opened, and with his legs just pushes the chair back into place, bends the remaining metal so that it's into a position where he can actually sit in it. That was how we solved it that night. And at that point, at some point anyway, he said, now what? Now I'm going to get in the truck and drive. I'm all sweaty. And, I just took a shower for the ride. I was going to be clean in the car. I got the... I'm like, you're not leaving tonight. Not after all this shit. I wouldn't do it. And so he stayed that night, one more night, dragged my mattress back into his room because his room's now empty. He's got everything packed in the truck. We just tarped it over. Soon as we got it tarped up, too. Soon as we were done tarping it up, rains on us, and I mean torrential downpour. Like, we packed it up, we finished, we went inside. I walked to this dining room, looked out, and it was that kind of rain where you can't see for like a 16th of a mile. It's coming down so hard. Just the timing, huh? Basically at that point, as my father is a Christian man, he's raised Christian, and during his, flipping out stuff, he's just, when he's blowing up, very, like, reasonably so, given the situation, given everything that's happened at this point. He's saying things like, there's no fucking God behind me in this, that kind of thing. And there's reasons, too, for that, because of, like, why he's going down to Florida, and what's going on down there, and what he's going down to try and fix. So I just say to him, listen, here's what was going to happen. You were going to get on the road, you're going to be driving down the highway, go to pass a semi, the semi's tire blows out, and then something like that. Like, you got to look at this in, the context of what would have happened if you would have gotten on the road today unencumbered, unhindered. Unhindered? Unhindered. If you would have just been able to get in the car and drive away because, wow, what convenient timing. And, you don't have to believe in that kind of a thing, like there is a universe looking out for people or there's a God looking out for people, but I just wanted to turn his mind to that idea that considering, how this whole thing ended, all the work that you put in, you prepared for everything, and then the one thing that you couldn't possibly prepare for stops you from leaving tonight, maybe you just look at it as though someone is looking out for you. Somebody sabotaged you for your own good. Because, good God, all the effort put into that moment, and then the seat won't go back, and something like that stops the whole thing dead in its tracks. And then as soon as we're done, the rain pours down, like, just, If you've been on the road in that rain, God knows what would have happened, is the kind of thing that I suggested to him. But that was the, and there goes the screen again. Screensaver. Gotta touch the mouse occasionally, Pawn. That was his attempt to leave, wherein he was not allowed to leave by the universe, by fate, by chance, circumstance, or by whatever. And so he left yesterday morning while I was still asleep. I woke up and got a phone call from him. I didn't even know that he was out of the house, I don't think, when he had called. He calls me, hello, I'm still a little groggy. Hello? Hey, I'm in Toledo. Heading south. So, last I heard from him was last night about 11:30 p.m. He called me from, I believe, Tennessee, because he'd gone past Nashville, and he had put himself up in a hotel for the night. So today I expect to get a phone call from him later saying, I made it. I'm in Florida. As for what he's going down there, praise Jesus, says the Secretary Pony. As for the reasons he's going down there, some just ongoing family issues with a brother who just doesn't seem to be aware of anyone other than himself, making his mother, my father's mother, since they're brothers, that's how that works apparently, making her golden years of retirement just miserable. So my dad's going down there to try and straighten his brother out, get his brother the hell away from his mother so that she can live her life. And that was Wednesday night. That was right after the live stream. I have such an interesting life, right? When I'm not on camera. Hologram 1, he's considered it. I'm sure he has anyway. He hasn't talked about it, but for Christ's sake. If I told you the story of that. But, I probably shouldn't. By the way, this is somebody's portrait. Looks really like a guy that I know from the Zen Center, in fact. In fact, it's the guy that I was mentioning earlier, where I was talking about the guy who moved in with a girl on the edge of Hamtramck in Detroit, and they got robbed, or somebody tried to rob them, and she scared them off, and the police never came. This is the guy. It's not him, and this is not by him, but that's the guy. That is, that's his face. I saved it specifically. If I ever run into him again, I'm going to be like, hang on. I got to show you. Somebody did a portrait of you, buddy. So there's a little bit of, home movies, storytelling with Paul and the story of leaving. And now, since yesterday, I'm alone in the house again. Just me and two cats. Just me slowly becoming a cat lady with my drum kit. But because the house is empty, I just feel freer to make noise and do things that you do when you wouldn't do them when other people are around, like playing the drums, honestly. What am I going to just, even during the day and stuff, it's a little bit, when I'm trying to watch television, you go downstairs and play, you don't feel free to do that. And I haven't had that big of a drum hard on to, push the boundaries there. But now I got the drums back. But the other thing that I did yesterday, in addition to, I should mention this before I get on and before we start taking down all the pictures, sell this. We've looked at these before, but I will bring it back up again. If you're in the market for a used HTC Vive, I have now lowered the price because I've had it for sale for about 3 weeks or something like that, and I've only gotten one response, and just a looky-loo who kept contacting me about, is it still available, and are you firm on the price? And I, was willing to drop the price for him, and then he just never contacts me again, so just a looky-loo. So at this point, having sat on the price that I started with for a minute, I'm down to $400. I'm down to $400 for the used Vive. Whole kit, everything's there, every cable, every bit of it. If you'd like to get yourself a room scale. The thing is, like, shipping is a son of a bitch, especially for a big package like this. But I mean, it's all secure. They made it very nicely secure. The hell was that sound? Where's the shotgun? Oh, here it is. In reach. I presume one of the cats just walked by, but it's weird to get a sound in the house that's that specific. Bits Leader 3? A guy called Jim? Sims 3 when? What? Bits Leader 3? And it's a broken icon. It's a broken icon in my chat. That's a weird thing. What was that? The Zen of Jim image I spotted, Pawn. What? Buy it for $5 and a hand job, says Pony. Well, I'm not down to that level yet, but we might get there. I'm not paying $400 for a used Rift when I can buy a new Oculus for the same price. You mean a used Vive. And the only reason that you would is room scale. $400. If I wasn't planning for buying a vehicle soon, I'd actually buy that, says Bearsuit Lane. Yeah. At this point, I'm trying to sell it not for the purpose of getting a Rift, which was my first idea. I started selling it with just like the idea I probably would enjoy a seated experience more, given my physical health, and I'd like to try the Rift for a lot of reasons, but that I've already said before. But that's what I was originally thinking. Now, what I need to do is I need to liberate some money. I mean, I don't need to. I've got credit, so I can buy it, but I would like to sell that so that I could have the money to not have to do it all on credit, or at least to know that I could pay myself back after the fact. And upgrade, I need to do this quickly too, because there is a project in the works that we're fingers crossed it's going to be coming to the live streams in a month, where I need to get this thing back to a one computer setup. This live stream has been a 2 PC setup using a video capture card, external video capture device for a while now. 6 months we've been doing it this way, maybe 8 months, something like that. And I need to liberate some money. I just want to buy the biggest, meanest AMD chip that will go into my AMD PC, which would be the Ryzen 2700. I'm not going to get the X, even though I said biggest, baddest, because the X is just pre-overclocked, is how I look at it. So get the 2700, that's $250. Put that in here. And by the benchmarking and statistics I've seen, it will be more than enough for our live streams to come across in even better quality than they do with the 2 PCs, while playing the games at very reasonable frame rates. By reasonable, I mean it'll be 60 at least for you guys. And then for me, I'm pretty sure this monitor is 60 hertz, so it doesn't matter if it could be more. It just doesn't help me any, really. Pony? Ooh, is the thing? Anyway, I put myself under an NDA. But, yeah, so the Vive is still available. I've dropped the price down to $400 if you're interested in having the room scale standing, because the Vive itself is actually only new. It's like $500. But I tried looking to buy it for $500 and it's out of stock. Or at least it was when I was looking, like everywhere. They needed to, HTC has talked about doing a new run of the original Vive, but they've, amped up for their second generation Vive. So they're kind of out of production on the first one. Maybe they're not anymore. I don't know what's happening there, but it's used, but it's in very pristine, like, condition. I mean, it's completely fucking functional. There's nothing missing. I cleaned all of it up, from my oil. The only thing that isn't cleaned is the mask bit. I don't know what you do with that. You throw it in the laundry or something. I put the other mask. It comes with two masks in, so I put the clean one on and put the "it's been on my forehead a lot" one just in the box. You can deal with that yourselves. I'm not your fucking dry cleaning service over here. I'm selling you a used Vive for $100 less than what you'd pay. And, how many hours has it got on it? Whatever we played on the live streams, and then me playing some Minecraft is mostly what I used the Vive for, was the VR Minecraft. Run and Pawn, it's let's pre-overclocked, more better quality checked. They are the same chips, says Groggle. Yeah, Ryzen is all the same chips, as far as I know. Like the whole line of them, well, at least the 1500, 1600, and 1700, and 1800 when they came out was just all the same chips. It was just, the various degrees of silicon that they could get to run at different speeds, but it was identical in terms of like single core processing performance across every single chip, because it's the same stuff. Same everything across that entire line, just at different frequencies. And a little bit differently able to be overclocked. I mean, really, when you talk about pre-overclocked, that's really all you're talking about, is that they did the quality control testing and they found out that this one runs, stably here and actually could be overclocked. So, okay, we can ship it in this stable condition, then people can fuck with it if they want to. Oculus sells new face masks. I sincerely hope Vive does as well. I'm sure they do. But you could, Hologram One, you could buy it now and get a little bit of pawn sweat. You could actually harvest my DNA and, replicate me if you've got that technology. But, so that's for sale, and that's the plan. I want to get back to a one PC setup. I'm pretty sure, based on the thing, that a 2700 would handle everything that I do, and it would be that much simpler. Right now, my mouse, when I go to the right, it goes to a second computer and comes out on the other screen, and I bounce back and forth between PCs, and that's given me networking issues, which I've finally solved. But it's just the show that the thing that's coming, that's in the works right now, is way too complicated in and of itself. It's going to be too technical to have the kind of issues that we occasionally have with the two PC setup. So that's in the works. But I started out to say yesterday what I did. In part because my father's not around now. Because I just feel more comfortable, and I was doing this. Here's why because my father's not around now. It makes a little bit more sense. I was doing this until like 1 a.m. So I was playing music and being loud and singing loud until 1 a.m. And I learned to play a song that maybe you all remember this one. Maybe you recognize it. Look at that, even my Ronin pawns aren't coming across in the default chat. Not just over here, because I haven't integrated that yet. I've been a busy boy, so I haven't done a lot of coding. Yeah, they're not even coming across in the default thing. That's weird. Are you guys seeing that? The images? Dendi, when you posted that, did that actually pull up the Ronin pawns in chat? Because it didn't on my end. That's right, on Ryzen and Ryzen 2000 it is. They reduced core counts, are there if there's production defects that could make things unstable. Same thing with Threadripper and EPYC chips. You know more about it than I do. Yeah, it showed. Okay, so then my chat just needs to be refreshed or something like that, because they're not working on my end. In any case, maybe this is a song you remember, and maybe I'll be able to play it, because I don't know, it was just last night. My fingers are raw from how long I was playing it last night, but I also don't know how this is going to sound, because this isn't really a setup for audio, is it? But if I remember how this goes... alright. Somebody's hiding, it's crowding my icebox. Somebody's cold one is giving me chills. Guess I'll just close my eyes. Oh yeah, alright. Feels good inside. Flip on the telly, wrestle with Jimmy. Something is bubbling behind my back. The bottle is ready to blow. Say it ain't so. Your drug is a heartbreaker. Say it ain't so. My love is a life taker. I can't confront you, I never could do that which might hurt you. So try and be cool when I say this way is the water's not away from me and it takes you further every day. Oh, so be cool. Say it ain't so. Your drug is a heartbreaker. Say it ain't so. My love is a life taker. Damn it. Dear daddy, I'll write you. In spite of years of silence, you cleaned up, found Jesus. Things are good, or so I hear. This bottle of Stevens awakens ancient feelings like father, stepfather. The sun is drowning in the flood. Yeah, 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 yeah. Near, near, down, 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 down. Say it ain't so. Your drug is a heartbreaker. Say it ain't so. My love is a life taker. Here. Thank you, everyone. It was a loose riff, and look at my finger. Oh, you can't see it. It's too close. There you go. There's my finger. Look at the other side of it, huh? That looks fine though. But this side of the finger, good God after that. But this side's fine. This side is just great. I think this side really works. But this one? Thundering applause says, Bits Leader 3, a guy called Jim. Yeah, I'm getting, instead of seeing the images, I'm getting like words. For example, Bits Leader 3, a guy called Jim. Somebody take Bits Leader 3 away from him, and then I'll have made some money. But thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your, yeah. Weezer, Say It Ain't So. Incredibly simple song. Incredibly simple song that I actually rewrote in order to play it the way that I wanted to play it. I got a very unique way of playing music. It's lazy. It's very lazy. I have a number of techniques. Turned it into a drop D song. It's actually, the whole guitar is meant to be tuned down a half step. You may have noticed also, if you looked closely, I only have 5 out of 6 strings on that guitar because I can't be bothered to restring the missing. Lazy is my technique. Shall we have another live stream break and come back and finish up on, well, I could tell you a story about Brandon, my buddy Brandon, who we shoot the short films with. Director of Bleak, currently nominated. Currently nominated. Pi, Jim, keeps telling me, why don't you ever talk about that? I and Brandon Fry have produced Bleak, which is a short film. You can find it on YouTube by searching Bleak and Brandon Fry with an E at the end. Brandon Fry. We are currently nominated to 2 short film festivals, one in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, and one in Maumee County, Ohio. And the Maumee County, Ohio one seems to be like a bit of a thing. I mean, Sault Ste. Marie is, I don't know. I've never been to either of them. But the Maumee, Ohio one, the guy who's going to be watching it, like the head judge anyway, whether he shows up at the show or not, that's a little bit, but the head judge works for DreamWorks in some capacity. So someone who works for DreamWorks is going to view our little short film that you can check out on YouTube because we were selected. And in fact, they sent us the lineup for like the order that the short films are going to play at the Maumee Film Festival. We're the last in our category. That's cool. Like, I don't, that's not an award or anything, but that is something that means somebody decided, they sat down and they chose, you know, out of all the lists, you know, all the ones that fit in this category, you know, that's sort of the big choice that you make is which one am I going to roll first and which one am I going to roll last? That's, you know, the stuff in the middle, it also matters in terms of like trying to just make a certain experience for people, but that's all very much, you know, the first one and the last one, kind of important. And if I had to choose, out of all the positions, I wouldn't want to be first, I'd want to be last. They selected ours to play last at the film festival. That's, I mean, I don't know, it could mean nothing, but I like it anyway. If either of those have public voting, we could totally rig it for you, says very funny. They're just panels of judges is what they are. Let's take a live stream break. When we come back, I'll tell you a story about Brandon Fry, possibly, unless I can come up with something else to fill this 4-hour no-game random idle chat Vive la Revolution live stream on the Ronan Pawn channel, twitch.tv/. Save the best for last, right? Right? That's not why I'm playing MC Cullah first here. He's good. We'll be back in 7 minutes. Stay with me for the end of this live stream. Pawn not out.
Oh, maybe pain and sorrow, there's no tomorrow. Will take a hold of me, baby, baby. all alone. Won't you come along and hold me? I ain't the seventh son, but I know where I'm from. Let's head on, get on down the highway. And maybe when we come back, by then you will have seen things my way. I don't want no skinny woman, a woman who's got no sense of style. I want a girl with the diamond ring on her finger, one who knows how to say nothing. I just can't find this girl nowhere. Until I do, I will stay all alone. Everybody knows why we live. My preacher told me I'm a sinner. I have no money to prove my beliefs. I'm sure I have nothing to give them. The preacher said my God has left me, and everybody's agreeing. I'm so holy with my pockets empty. I got my own got to Everybody give their money for hope. The preacher said they won't let down. You have no money, then you have no soul. You have no right to be forgiven. The preacher said my God has left me, and everybody's agreeing. I'm so holy with my pockets empty. I got my own got to live.
Hello, I am the Ronan Vaughn, and welcome back to twitch.tv/Ronan Vaughn live stream on the twitch.tv/Ronan Vaughns.
The preacher said
Thank you very much for whatever that was. Who was it? I don't know. It went off my screen. Welcome back to the live stream, the final hour, or just the wrap-up bit. Managed to go an entire live stream without playing a goddamn game. Congratulations are in order? In a certain sense, considering what's coming, he keeps alluding to it. Yes, well, it's coming more and more into vision. It seems to be manifesting itself. Just building hype for that which I won't mention outright. So where am I? What are we doing? I have a story that I could convey to you about a Mr. Brandon Fry. I don't know why we need to be on this screen instead of the other one for this, but I don't know. I feel more comfortable here. It looks like there's things in the background that you could be looking at that aren't just me. I have a story I could convey about Brandon Fry, but I do want to, two things before we get started. One, remind you that this could be considered an AMA, so if you've got any questions, if you've got any things that you could probably, treat me like that teacher, that professor in university or that teacher in school who, if you mentioned a certain thing, you could just send him rattling off for 35 minutes and then you wouldn't get any homework for the day because he'd forget the lesson plan. Treat me like that guy. Everybody's had one of those, right? I did that in a class once, in a college-level university class, and it didn't work at all. But there was a certain professor who, it was politics. There's a 100-level class, probably a 101, and we were talking American politics, and I really thought that this was going to send him off because he just had a tendency to just sort of, go off on a tangent, and then there wouldn't really be an assignment. We wouldn't go back to the books, and honestly, it was more interesting to hear him talk. So I'm sitting in class, and we're talking about American history and founding fathers and that kind of a stuff, and basically the course content is about how the founding fathers designed a system to intentionally disenfranchise the American public, like to keep them at bay. The Electoral College, the idea that there are, fat men smoking cigars in a room somewhere who actually decide who's going to be elected, and then we do a public vote, but their vote, then we filter it and screen it, and we really are the ones who decide, was just the topic of conversation. And we hadn't said it hadn't been said outright, in those terms. I've just put it in that, it was intentionally to disenfranchise the American public, to make people's vote that much further from the end process. So I just raised my hand, and in a train spotting accent, because I'd been watching that a lot, and I was crazy. I was in college. I didn't know what the hell was going on with life. In a Scottish accent that I shouldn't have said, because now I have to do it, don't I? I said, no, I'm not going to even try. I'm so far away from Scottish accent right now. I said to him, so you mean to say that the founding fathers intentionally disenfranchised the voting public? That's what you're saying? And his response was, yeah. Why? I said, I don't know. I just wanted to start a conversation. Because I didn't question it. I didn't challenge it. I was totally like, yeah, I'm on board for that. I was just trying to spin him off. And he didn't fall for it. He did not bite. Pawn, quick question. Do you have any advice for what to do when you realize that 5 rooms in your house are full of literally toxic air slowly poisoning you to illness? Windows. Open those. Open those up. That's what you want to do. Just a little bit of the opening of the windows. And then maybe finding the source of the toxic air slowly poisoning you and, remove it. Pawn, what do you know about mandarins? Oh, mandarins! I could go on for 35 minutes precisely on mandarins. Small fucking oranges. They think they're like, we're cool because we're smaller and we're sweeter. You're not a real orange. Get your shit together, mandarins. You are tiny testicles in comparison to the almighty orange. And by the way, fucking cantaloupes. That's all I'm saying. They're very hoity for the fact that they're so small. And what's the other one that's not a mandarin, but it's even smaller? That one's just a fucking prick. So, as to Brandon, apparently, as we can come up with nothing better to ask me about. As to Brandon, we were scheduling a shoot The toxic air is the result of the house being completely disregarded and uncared for over a decade. Oh, well then clean is my other thing. Don't get porn started on Satsumas. Oh, thank you, KSBJT, because I said there were two things. The first was that it's an AMA, but the other thing is slapping a little Zen on you. I don't know if this is Zen or not, but it's just something that occurred to me just now during the live stream break, because my cat Paws, I got two of them, Bags and Paws, and they'll both like follow me around at various times, but with Paws, I don't know, there's something interesting, something weird about the whole back and forth between us, because Paws tends to follow me when I'm like doing something, and if I were Paws, I would think that I'm avoiding him, because he'll be coming into the room while I'm walking out of the room, and then he'll like stand there, and then he'll turn around and start following me in that direction. I'll go grab whatever I needed, and then I'll walk right past him, and then he'll follow me in the other direction. It just happens over and over again. And, you know, if there were like an emotional context to the situation and Paws was capable of that level, I'd be like, what the fuck, man? Trying to come and hang out with you? You just keep walking away every time? It just seems to happen randomly. And it's got me thinking about, I think the reason why I thought of it is because when I was coming to the live stream, I started walking for the office, and then I went, oh, right, I brought my coffee cup out here. Let me see if there's any more coffee. So I stopped, I turned around, went back, grabbed my coffee cup, walking past Paws, and who had been following me a little bit, and then I walked in and I got the coffee cup, and then I came in here. And what occurred to me in that moment was, you don't see animals do that, do you? Like, you don't see animals lower than the human do that, is what occurred to me. I never see my cat, like, start walking in a certain direction and then sort of stop and then turn around and go back and grab a toy. Like, I can't think of an instance, even with dogs. You know, I was thinking, well, what about with dogs? Like, sometimes we'll be playing with him and there's a ball involved and he'll run and then he'll, like, come back and then, but he doesn't have the ball because he's a dog and he's stupid and he just forgets every fucking thing. And then he'll go back and get it. But no, what a dog will do when it has that, like, hiccup moment in its brain, it'll chase the ball down, you know, go to the ball, and then it'll run back without the ball. If you don't say, get the ball, then he'll just like run at you. Like when you say get the ball, he'll be running back and all right, the ball, and then he'll go back and get it. But it just occurred to me, I can't think that I've seen animals behaving that human way that we behave, which is second guessing. It's also just like second level awareness, like things that passed our consciousness that we filtered out. You know, when I walked through the room that had the coffee cup in it, presumably, you know, on a subconscious level, my eyes saw the coffee cup and I start walking in, and then my brain kind of processed it in the background because my frontal lobe was, you know, busy thinking about it, doing some other shit. And so, you know, it finally caught up to it and went, oh, wait, the coffee. And then I go, oh, yeah. And I stop and I turn and get the coffee. I don't see animals. I never see my cats, like, headed in a certain direction, stop, remember something, and then go do something else and come back. You ever see that in animals? Animal behavior? Because what it points out to me, or what it could point out to me, you know, that connects very strongly to Zen, is that, you know, one, that's part of what makes this level of sort of consciousness that we have as human beings somewhat unique, in that we do have that sort of two-mindedness to us. Like an animal sees something and they react to it immediately in the moment. So there's no going back, there's no remembering something else, there's no like deciding something else is more important. You know, an animal in the middle of doing something, it hears a rustling and it's like, oh shit, and it takes off. But that's an immediate reaction, you know, or it stops doing what it's doing and it looks in the direction of the sound. If it sees something move, then it takes off. Our reactions are delayed and recursive, and they go and then they come back, and they go and then they come back. And a big part of Zen training, when you get into, you know, past just the sitting on the meditation mat part of Zen training, has a lot to do with just being in the moment. I mean, everybody recognizes that for Zen, but what it translates to is reacting. Not reacting, you know, it's not like something happens. There's a danger in using the word reaction because, you know, we spend too much of our lives reacting. Somebody says something to us, it feels a certain way, and then we just blah out on them. And that's not authority, that's not control over your, like, that's certainly not something that's encouraged in Zen practice. But being able to meet the situation right here, right now, having used your complete consciousness to be aware, that is what Zen is going for. And it's something that in the animal world just seems to just be. They don't do that. I'm sure you could find examples of higher level primates or something where they do that where maybe you can't, I don't know, where they have that same kind of reaction of heading in one direction to do something and then going, oh, wait a second, and then going off to do something else first. But that's very unique to our situation, and it's also it's a good thing that we have that ability. I keep using the word unique because it's not a bad thing inherently. It's unique to our level of consciousness that we are filtering data on a level that most animals don't. The information that comes in at our eyes, our ears, is all of our senses. It gets processed, and we're sort of picking out the pieces that we think are relevant, or that we have, synaptic constructs in our heads that our brain just reacts to more prevalently because it's the kind of thing, and there goes the screen again, that's more important based on historical evidence. And there's all this information, most of our lives get missed. Most of what's going on in any situation gets missed. I'm sitting in this room, and there's these things on the desk, and there's that over there, and I need to empty the trash thing, and the Vive still hasn't fucking sold, and I got the guitars over there, and it's probably just going to fall down in a couple of seconds. There's so much information that's coming in at any given time, and we're constantly in the act of filtering it out and deciding what's important and what's not, what's real to us, and what's, and that's just sort of our practice as human beings. It's just what we do all the time. And Zen is very much about, training you. Or in Zen training, you will be trained to reconnect with your, first reaction, to be, first and foremost, present. Maybe not so much focusing on the reaction, but to be first and foremost completely present. Your consciousness completely open. And how do you get your consciousness completely open? Well, everything I just described, you stop doing that. You stop filtering. You open up completely. A metaphor that is bandied about in Zen constantly is the lotus blossom. And the idea of the lotus blossom is, first off, the lotus blossom grows up out of shit, out of the muck water, out of swamp water, and then it grows, and then it blossoms and flowers, and blossoming is a huge symbolic image in Zen, for the reason that the process of practicing Zen and of training yourself is of training yourself to just be open. To not be closed up in defense against what the world might throw at you, not be rigid against what you haven't already experienced, to be completely open and ready to react and ready to meet the world exactly as it presents itself, without second guessing, without double thinking, without stress and worry and inner conflict. Because all of that comes from your sense of self and from those layers of separation that you're doing with everything that you see. You see something and you see the coffee cup out of the corner of your eye, and it's just a coffee cup. And then you stop in the middle of the room, you turn back and go get it because, oh yeah, no, the coffee cup's important. There's all that valuation that's constantly going on. And getting the ego out of your life, getting clear enough that you can just be open without a constant internal conversation in your head, without a constant second guessing. Because what's second guessing? Other than having that filter and going back and forth with that filter. Just sort of, is that important? Is this important? Is that important? Is this important? Right, wrong. You get stuck in those loops. Zen is very much about just being present and just reacting to it and not worrying about how you are going to react to it. For a long time I've said my greatest fear is myself. And that's absolutely true. I mean, death is going to be scary, but I wouldn't call it a fear. My biggest fear is myself, and I think that's true for all of us. I think we're all most afraid of ourselves. What would I do? Put me in a corner, what would I be capable of? What might I say? Because I've said some horrible things, and I've done some horrible things in the past. What might I say if I sort of take my hands off of the steering wheel? If I release this ego that's trying to control everything that I see and think and taste and touch and everything, if I actually just let myself be in the universe and let it work itself out, I'm afraid of that. I'm afraid of me in that situation. The only animals that have the thought delay, says Groggles, are killer whales when hunting. They reconsider and pull off when bubble netting schools of fish. Very interesting. Yeah, our experience as human beings is very much that of a filtration system. And the thing is, we don't have enough faith in ourselves, as well as just in the universe in general, to handle this shit. Like, we're all worried that we're gonna say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing or treat someone poorly or, screw ourselves over or end up killing ourselves. There's a worry about us. We're afraid of ourselves and what we might do. That when you resolve to let yourself just be part of the universe and let it all just happen, realize it doesn't have to be. Like, you will say and do bad things and horrible things. And then the people around you and the world around you will respond to that, react to that. And you'll feel bad. And you won't want to feel bad. And you won't do that again. Or you'll slowly but surely correct the behavior just by the fact that, like, you don't have to lay your hands on and strangle yourself to death in trying to curb behavior. It will fix itself if you will just get clear and stand out of your way. We are, at base, animals. And, an animal doesn't need to be taught to, like, run when there's a predator around. And if they do need to be taught, they're taught it by their parents, by just seeing that their parents do that when they see that animal come around. And they don't have to think about it. They don't have to double guess it and wonder whether or not, well, could I stand up to that predator? What should I do with that predator? Would I, maybe that's a good predator. Some of these predators are bad, but maybe that's a good one. Our experiences inform us in ways that are not on, surface level thought area. Most of our lives happen in the subconscious realm. And the thing is, we're missing most of our lives because it's happening on a level of purity. That information stream of the outside world, always coming in, always informing you, changes in air pressure that you feel, sounds off in the distance, sights, the feeling, the skin, the wind on your skin and stuff, things that just get filtered out naturally. And if you're just open, completely open, it takes care of itself. You don't need to be the guy with the hands on the wheel. There isn't a wheel, is the thing. But we're also afraid of ourselves, what we might do, and we're also afraid of losing ourselves. Weird, contradicting sort of a thing, but I think I'm onto something in saying that, aren't I? Isn't that true? We're afraid of ourselves and what we might do, and we're also afraid of losing ourselves, because our identities are wrapped up in that, in our ego, in our opinions, and what we do and where we go and what we say. But true freedom is freedom to just respond, to just be present. Something emerges in front of you and you meet it as wholly and as clearly as you possibly can in that moment. It doesn't have to be the way that you usually are. It doesn't have to be fall in line with your opinions on governmental legislation and shit like that. Just whatever is most natural. Somebody in front of you or somebody behind you is coming in as you're walking through a door. The most natural thing in the world is to acknowledge that you just put forward energy to open this door. They don't have to. I'm going to stand here and hold the door for you, at least hold it a little bit as you pass through, that kind of a thing. It's the most natural thing in the world. You don't have to think about it. But people do have to think about it because people don't do that, because they're too lost in their own heads. And then they try and correct the behavior and go, okay, well, I guess I should hold the door for, an old woman behind me with the fucking, whatever it is. I always lose words. Whatever it is, her walker, and I didn't notice that. Now she's back there struggling with the walker halfway in there, and then you run back and go, oh, God, I'm sorry, I missed it. Why did I miss it? Well, you were completely in your own fucking headspace, lost in thought, lost in your own internal process of what's going on in your life, what you're about to do, where you've been, where you're going to. In this moment, the most natural thing in the world is to hold the fucking door. And it will happen with just clarity. The act of being able to doubt is a privilege that is only granted to species in a situation where it is the only apex predator. That actually, that's a very good sort of. I could bind that to the situation in Detroit here. You know, why do we have so much street violence in Detroit? Well, because we have less privilege to doubt around here. You know, to give people the benefit of the doubt. Somebody meets you in the street, and they bring something. You know, it's an issue. It's a possibly violence. You know, in the suburbs, you know, live in Detroit, the situation is like, maybe I should feel this person out. And in Detroit, the deeper you are in Detroit, the situation is more that animal response of predator, run, or predator, kill. Kill so I don't have to run. Because we don't have the privilege of giving you the benefit of the doubt. I managed to bring it back there, huh? But we got some Zen in, and it is very interesting, isn't it? Think about that. Bear that in mind. Where do you see, like, double think in wildlife, except in human beings, except at this level of consciousness? Maybe the network mainframe that we're all running our programs in, because this is all simulation, reserves that processing power just for this level of being. Good Zen, big fan. I'll bear it in mind. It says Bearsuit Lane with a bear at the end. Big Zen, good fan. All right, let's close on the story about Brandon. It's not an upbeat story, but it's a story. Brandon and I are planning to do a little bit of shooting, or we were planning to do a little bit of shooting coming up here next Thursday. And I spoke to Brandon after he was doing some pre-production on another thing we're working on, and had no idea of this, but in the course of the conversation, after he gets through telling me how pre-production went, he was going to a wrestling show. Going to a wrestling show. Him and his girlfriend and some of their friends, and they got out on the road, and they got about 2 miles away from home, and there was a big line of traffic down the, 2 lanes, center lane for left turns, 2 lanes. Big line of traffic just backed up on the left side for people, I don't know, getting ready to turn left somewhere or something like that. His lane, clear, 35 miles per hour. It's a slow road, heading down that. Big line of traffic, and someone in that line of traffic had come to a stop early in order to wave somebody through. Come on through. Come on. Because it's a big line of traffic, and they're just trying to be kind, and they know that this person is going to be stuck there waiting for the big line of traffic for a good long time, unless somebody stops and waves them through. Come on through. I think you know where this story is going. Woman in an SUV pulls out, does not even slow down or look, just pulls out and assumes that the fellow who waved her over to be kind was saying, "You're clear completely, go ahead, no need to use your own senses, don't worry about your mirrors, trust me, I'm a stranger in a vehicle stuck in traffic, surely I have checked all of the angles for you, come on through, honey." Woman in an SUV, boom, Brandon T-bones this woman, cutting across the line of traffic without looking. He managed to put the brakes on beforehand and slow it down a little bit, but it was a pretty fast and over and done sort of an event. Airbags deploy in the vehicle. It's something that always gets sort of passed over in accidents, stories of accidents, isn't it? I don't think of the airbags. I don't think to ask about, did the airbags deploy? Maybe other people do. But it just seems to be like a non-issue. The airbags deployed, which means, when airbags deploy on you, it may save your life, but it's also a punch to whatever it hit. It's a punch in the face. You're probably going to be bruised if you don't break a nose or something. These things are lifesavers, not face preservers. So, airbag deploys. Apparently, it managed to, catch Brandon's arm in some way, so it, and it twisted his arm, and he's got, burn marks from the, of the airbag kind of thing on his arm, but he didn't, break a nose or anything. Everybody's okay. His car, undrivable. He just T-boned somebody, so the radiator's probably somewhere in the engine valves. Um, but yeah, they're just going, and the thing is about that scenario, I know a thing or two about a thing or two when it comes to that kind of traffic accidents. Why? Because I am very well versed in the People's Court, which is a program, if you're unaware of it, in America, midday program for, I mean, it's been on the air since the era where it would be for, like, stay-at-home moms. That was sort of the mentality of it. Stay-at-home moms, we put on the People's Court, and you watch, a half an hour's worth of, like, 3 cases. They draw the different people in, and the defendant today is accused of... The plaintiff says he didn't even look to his left when he turned... The People's Court, with your judge, Judge Wapner. And that was his name, too, for a number of years. Judge Wapner is probably 20 years on the People's Court. And he retired, and Marilyn Milian took it over. And she's great. I love Judge Wapner, too. Marilyn Milian is great. So I've watched a lot of, these are small cases. They're small claims court cases. They're individual cases with a limit of up to, it's $5,000 in Michigan. It could be $7,000 or $8,000 in other states, but there's a certain limit on how much you can bring in a small claims court that goes by the states. And so this show basically goes by whatever state they picked you up out of. They do the court case, and both of them agree to consent to the ruling that here today, and they go by the rules of the state they drew you out of, and you watch small claims court. So I've seen a lot of stuff and learned a lot about small claims style cases and what the rules and laws are, even when they get tricky and stuff, because obviously the people scheduling these cases are looking for ones that are interesting. Because at a certain point, you get tired of somebody coming in and saying, he evicted me and he threw my stuff out on the lawn and he didn't even file. And the judge saying, you can't do that. It's case it's dismissed for the plaintiff. Or not dismissed, case for the plaintiff. You get tired of seeing the same cases, and there's a lot of the same cases. There were a lot of, like, a dog got loose and killed my dog cases. That come onto that show, and probably because they get good numbers from cases around dogs. People, those stay-at-home moms, oh my God, I can't believe they let their pit bull run the neighborhood like that. But I've seen a lot of People's Court. I've also always been an enthusiast of the law. Not because it works in this country, but I like the idea of what it could be and what it should be and what it's meant to be. So in that situation, Brandon's driving down the road. There's a line of traffic on the left. Somebody cuts across from the, trying to turn left onto that way. What I am aware of is that it is in fact illegal for the person who stopped and waved her through to stop and wave her through. There is actually a law in the books that means that person can be held accountable as well. Just trying to be a good, decent human being. And, you're going to be stuck there waiting for ages because this line of traffic is forever. I'm going to stop and let you through. The person who stops and waves somebody through can be held negligible for the resulting traffic accident. The problem with that law is obvious, and it's that the person who waved through usually just pulls their hat down and pulls out of the line of traffic and drives away after the person who they waved through runs into somebody else. So it's kind of hard to catch them on that one. You'd have to have the license plate. You'd have to know that law when it happens and look over and catch the license plate as the guy drives away, embarrassed and immediately trying to fabricate whatever mental gymnastics that they're going to tell themselves about. Well, she should have looked and I wasn't responsible. And at least they're not putting healing crystals all over their steering wheel, turning it into a claymore. Do people do that? Oh boy, Judge Judy knockoffs. The knockoff of a show only old people watched and didn't want an alternative to anyway. No, Judge Judy is, she's a follow-up to The People's Court. The People's Court has been on the air for 35 years, probably. Maybe more. Judge Judy came along a lot longer, doing what Wapner did, except more, aggressively. And that's what I like about The People's Court. I don't like Judge Judy. I've seen some of it. I don't like Judge Judy. We're talking about old people television. Welcome to the show. I don't like Judge Judy. She's very yeah, well, so? Well, you don't know that? Yeah, fuck you. I mean, she might as well be saying that. She's really in your shit and in your case. Even the people who are like in the right, you know, she'll just be like, you're wasting my time. I don't need to hear about that. He's wrong. You're right. Shut the fuck up. Judge Wapner, as well as Marilyn Milian, you know, they're serious, but they're not stupidly aggressive. They'll get aggressive when it calls for it. When somebody's standing there trying to argue that, no, but what about this? That doesn't sound right. And they'll be like, you fucking asshole. You are wrong. You are clearly wrong. Turn around right now and look at everyone behind you. You see the way they're looking at you? You're wrong. I don't know what you've done in your own head to convince yourself that you're not responsible for what you did. I do enjoy those shows. I have enjoyed those shows in the past. But yeah, it is actually illegal for the person who waves them through to wave them through, which is something I think we all do, regular drivers at a certain instance. But I'll tell you, whenever I do it, I'm checking the lane beside me before I even think about making room for the other person, because I'm aware of that law, and I'm also aware of the ever-present threat of doing that. You're going to open up a space, the person's going to be like, oh, okay. And, you know, your car's a fucking SUV, their car's a Prius. They're sitting down here, you're a giant brick wall that they have to, like, basically turn left into without being able to see what traffic's coming. It's a bad idea in a lot of circumstances. Me, I drive a 1994 Toyota Tercel, so, you know, basically I'm right on the ground. To get it to move, I have holes cut out, and I just shuffle my feet. But yeah, so Brandon, hits that woman, his car, there she goes again. His car, more or less, I don't know. He says it's going off to the insurance company, you know, it's off to the mechanics, and the insurance company is deciding whether to wreck it and, you know, write it off or to repair it. And thing is, he's got $1,000 insurance deductible. America. $1,000 insurance deductible. So he would have to pay $1,000 of the damages, and then whatever remains, then the insurance company would pay it. And then he could sue the woman who was found at fault. It was her fault more than the person who waves him through. You're the one who drove your car into oncoming traffic, hon. Sorry. Also, she was in an SUV, so, you had the height. Even if it's another SUV you're passing, you got more eyes than I would if I were pulling the same maneuver. So she was found at fault. She was ticketed. She's responsible. He could sue her for the $1,000 that he has to pay in his deductible. Having watched a lot of Marilyn Milian, he could also sue her for a rental car if he needs it in the interim, and also if the cost of the rental car is reasonable. People have come into that courtroom on the People's Court and tried to get, like, rental car for like a month and a half or something like that. And it's like, no, you can't have a month and a half worth of rental car, even if they were fixing your car for a month and a half. By that point, you need to figure something else out. You can't just spend your own money willy-nilly thinking that somebody else is going to cover it at the end of the day. You have to try and mitigate your damages. And if you don't mitigate your damages, then you absorb your damages. Those are the rules. And that's why I like Marilyn Milian, because she holds true to the intent of the law. And if the intent of the law is not sufficient, she will look for every angle she possibly can. She'll basically, play prosecutor and try to find the loophole or the bending of the law when somebody is clearly in the wrong, but the law does not allow her to give, the verdict that she wants to give. I've seen her say, I'm going to take a break and I'm going to go look through the law and I'm going to see if there isn't anything that will hold this person accountable because that was fucked up. And she'll go back. And sometimes she comes back and she just goes, I'm really sorry. I think everybody in this courtroom would agree. He's at fault. The law is not there to support you. I have to dismiss it. I'm terribly sorry. I just looked. I spent 20 minutes. I couldn't find anything. You're screwed. Gavel down. In some states, says Bearsuit Lane, you can get people's tickets for driving irresponsibly if you have dash cam footage. In other states, you have to have proof of the driver. Oh, yeah, for the idea of the person who's, waved her through. If you had a dash cam and it saw the license plate, then you could track the car. Yeah, that's a thing, too. I'll bet you here's the difference, Bearsuit Lane, for the states that do it one way and the states that do it the other way. The states that do it one way probably have speed cameras. Because if they're going to ticket people based on the fact that their camera saw your car driving at a certain speed down the street without knowing who was driving the car, and they're going to try and uphold that in the court of law, well, then they have to support the idea that if another driver's camera catches another driver's, they have to support that concept. Because that is definitely like a on the line sort of a gray area when it comes to speed cameras and traffic tickets. You know, because yeah, somebody was driving my car at a high rate of speed, but you don't know who it is. And in all law everywhere else, you have to have proof, you know, to a certain degree. Well, we saw your car driving. That is not proof. That's getting there. You need a little bit more. And if you can get a little bit more, then sure. But I'll bet you anything that's the difference of the states that have chosen to uphold the idea of, you know, you can have your dash cam catch the plate and then that'll be enough, or you need actual footage of like the person's face in the car. Probably comes down to them watching out for their own interests when it comes to their traffic cameras. Are you saying not all of America has speed cameras? Oh no. No, Pony. Absolutely not. Only the rich parts, says Bearsuit Lane. Others are enforced by radar, others aren't. Yeah. I don't think we have any. I'm not aware of any speed cameras in my area. What we have, you know, we'll have cops with their radar guns. They just sit on the side of the road and wait to catch people speeding. But we'll have signs. There's a permanently mounted LED. Well, no, not LED. It's probably neon. Or not neon. What's the tungsten? It's probably tungsten lights. But there's a permanent sign that says 25 miles per hour, and there's a speed camera mounted to it. And as you pass, it shows you your speed. So that speed camera does not report to anyone, anywhere, as far as I know. It's just taking the speed and then showing it back to you to try and encourage you and remind you to slow down. It's right next to a very large, a massive public park where you got kids playing and people walking and crossing the street and stuff like that. So they put that up as just a, hey, might want to slow down. Nobody does 25 past it either, you know. I try and do 25 past it, but by the time I get up to it, I'm doing 28. But yeah, we don't have speed cameras that much in the United States. Fun fact, in the UK, there are over 80 people a year who get themselves fined for speeding with points on their licenses after putting dash cam footage on YouTube. Really? Really? Oh, that's cool, Groggles. I like that. I mean, it's I don't necessarily like it from a legal standpoint, but I just like it. I just enjoy it. But yeah, that is a blurry line. When I was in Korea, it was all speed cameras on the highways. I don't think we ever saw a cop car. Ever. Which you would think, you know, hey, in a city like Detroit, wouldn't it be nice if our police were all dedicated to the process of, you know, waiting 25 minutes to go to a burglary in process, as we looked at earlier today. Wouldn't that be nice? But no, it's all just people on foot, on the ground. You know, the thing is that that most of our traffic stops, they may instigate as speeding, but the point of them is more so to, you know, drill you down. It's a really good opportunity to racially target people, and just target people who are driving certain kinds of vehicles, either, you know, really poor and shitty and broke up, and make the assumption that this person's either alcoholic or a drug user, because Jesus, that's a piece of shit, huh? Or, you know, to go the other direction. Hey, there's a black guy driving a Beamer, you know. It's a really good way for them to stop and then interrogate at roadside and try and use what is a great level of intimidation to get people to incriminate themselves. You know, ask questions. You're just pulling somebody over for, you know, a out tail light or speeding or failing to merge, and you get up to the car and you say, would you mind popping your trunk for me? You know, can I search the car? Can I look in your glove compartment? I mean, from case to case, they don't always do that, but with certain individuals, you know, they might do that. And the thing is, you can absolutely legally say, no, you can't do that. And then that traffic stop is going to turn into a nightmare. It's going to turn into a nightmare. Even though you have the legal right to say, no, this is my property, you're not in no, I do not consent to you, you know, stripping down my property. I'm not going to pop the trunk for you. It's a speeding ticket. Write me a ticket and let's go home. Well, now you're going to be at roadside for the next 35 minutes, and 2 other cars are going to pull up, and they're going to bring a dog to sniff your car, and maybe they call the supervisor out, and they're really going to intimidate the shit out of you. That's how the law is enforced in America. Our police practices put themselves against the public and let the public very much know that your rights are the last thing that we're worried about here today. Fun speeding fact, on the Autobahn in Germany, the speed limit is as fast as is responsible in the circumstances. If you crash, you are not insured and fined as you were evidently driving irresponsibly. It's not a bad premise, you know? If you get into an accident, then if you cause an accident, if you crash yourself, then you were not driving responsibly, given the circumstances. It's a very, open policy, but actually covers everything, doesn't it? Covers all the bases. You know, and there would still be, you're still holding people accountable for when they cause an accident by driving irresponsibly and they drive someone else off the road or something more horrible happens. But that's a really good law, actually. I think that's a really good law as much as I think Roe v. Wade was a really good law. Which is a thing that almost no one agrees with me on. For the time, Roe versus Wade, which is America's big abortion law, was excellent legislation. It was excellent Supreme Court judiciarying, is how I call it. Because the country was very much 50-50 split on the idea of abortion. Some of them want it completely criminalized, some of them want it completely legalized, and hopefully a majority fell somewhere in the middle and recognized that this is a matter with a lot of different moving parts. Maybe we can't be all 100% one way or all 100% the other way. Maybe you're kind of a zealot and an insane person if you think it should be all one way. Well, I don't know if I even agree with that, but if you think it should just be completely criminalized, then that's intense zealotry, at the very least. And honestly, yeah, this is why I like Roe v. Wade. On the other end of that, no, it should be completely legal 100% of the time. I don't care if you're about to go into labor. That's not right either. What Roe v. Wade decided was that it put on the record, the state has a vested interest in the possibility of life, in an unborn child's life. The state has a responsibility and a vested interest in protecting and preserving the possibility of life. And the law was drafted in such a way as to say, as the potential for the fetus to survive birth becomes more and more likely, the state has more and more a role in preserving the life of the fetus and more authority to decide when it is appropriate and when it is inappropriate to give an abortion. And I think that's absolutely brilliant. Brilliant legislating and absolutely appropriate, especially to the time when you got a nation split 50-50 right down the middle. Yeah. And in terms of, I don't remember if Roe v. Wade actually pinned down if the judges said from the bench, I don't think they did, when that cutoff should be, in terms of trimesters or months or something like that. I think they just set down that precedent, and then the law filled itself in, and there it goes again. The law filled itself in to basically account for, it's also a well-drafted law in terms of, this is actually where it's become an issue now, but for what they were trying to do, to settle this debate, it still seems well drafted to me in the fact that I believe their consensus, what they passed down, was the idea that it depends on the medical technology. They said it's about the likelihood of the fetus's survival. So the more likely it is for an unborn child to survive to gestation, to being born, then, the more authority the state has to preserve the potentiality of life. That means that as technology increases and as there is more and more potential to save an unborn fetus, that means that the window of getting an abortion gets smaller. And that is definitely the sticking point. But for the time that it was written, that legislation actually seems very forward-thinking to me and seems to cover everything. I think Roe v. Wade was a genius verdict from the Supreme Court that made a decision that needed to be made in a way that left it open enough for, society to figure out how it was going to deal with it. And as of today, if I had to be pinned down on abortion, I would say there needs to be At this point, I would rewrite the law to not really account for the fetus. To not account for it anymore, because I feel like at this point with medical technology, we're so advanced that, there could be an argument made for you can't have an abortion too early, basically. I think the law needs to be written now to, if you're going to write a law that tries to account for everyone and not say, well, this is right and all the other 50% are fucking wrong and fuck them. If you're trying to write a law, I would write it to say, we need to decide the minimum that is a reasonable amount of time for a person to discover that they are pregnant, to have a reasonable window of consideration, and then to make that decision, schedule an appointment, and get it done. And here's what I would do, because I have my liberal bent and my socialist bent. I would say that amount of time that they have is directly proportional to the amount of access that they have to abortion clinics. Because we have huge problems in southern states in America where it is legal, but the local authorities have persecuted abortion clinics to the point where there might be only one in your state or none in your state. And then you have to have the funds and the resources and the ability to travel to another state, first in order to have a meeting and see a video, and then they want you to go home and think about it. So you have to travel and go and come and go and come, possibly 3 or 4 times before you can actually get an abortion under states' rights and states' laws that have set this thing up. So I would say, okay, that's fine. If you're going to maintain a situation where the medical technology of abortion is not available, if you're going to persecute them and close them down and everything, well, that means that person can have an abortion that much longer. I wouldn't bind it to medical technology anymore, and I wouldn't talk about the fetus, because that's just too much. But I would make the world a better place, make our country a better place, by putting that little caveat in there that would force states to back the fuck off, the southern ones that persecute abortion clinics and try and shut them down for technical and legal reasons, and come up with new legislation that means that they have to have. One of the things that's happened in some of our southern states in order to close down abortion clinics is they will rewrite the laws so that an abortion clinic now has to have the same corridors that a hospital has. Which means so that you can have 2 gurneys passing each other in the hallway at the same time in an emergency situation, and room for people to be standing against the wall. So they'll say you can't have an abortion clinic unless it's that. And those buildings are built specifically to be hospitals and to account for that. And so the abortion clinics that exist no longer, pass the thumb test of the law, and now they can't be abortion clinics anymore, and they got to move them somewhere, and you can't find a... And so they end up shutting them down with legal technicalities like that. So a little bit of a twist on the law that says, directly proportional to your access to abortion. It would encourage those southern states to support abortion and to make sure that they've got a lot of clinics so that they could narrow that window so that they could try and prevent people from, having free choice over their body and the next 18 years of their lives, at least. And whether or not they have the money, and whether or not they're in a stable situation, and whether or not this whole drug habit thing might get in the way of being a mom. All those little considerations just get tossed off of the table by certain folks. Or whether or not there was a non-consensual act involved in the pregnancy. Kind of pushes all that off the table. And just gets straight down to the fact of it, doesn't it? People go on bike holidays to Germany specifically to open the throttle 100%, says Groggles. That would block access to emergency contraceptive pills, wouldn't it? Emergency contraceptive pills? What? My law? What does my law say again? I've already forgotten. My law says, it's about the reasonable amount of time. Oh, you must be talking about theirs. Their laws. Block access to emergency contraceptive pills. The way that the law is currently written, that it relies on medical technology, I don't completely understand, and that's okay. That's what happens when you only look over to chat once every 5 minutes, and then somebody's comment has been sitting there for a long time, and you're miles past it. Doesn't that sound like a good law? I could have been a good legislator. You know what kept me out of the law? The law. Because the law in this country I would have just killed myself. If I would have gone into the law, I mean, I love the law in premise. I love the idea of solving problems that are, detailed in that way, that are social problems that are also problems of words. We have to craft this legislation so that it doesn't get taken out of context, so that it's specific enough, but also, in some cases, as in Roe v. Wade, loose enough to conform to the situation. We need to give judges the right to do their jobs and judge and choose sentences, but we also need to legislate for certain local states that are going to do things that will persecute people who are just trying to get access to their federally guaranteed rights. It's so beautifully complicated, and you can fix so much of it with words and language. And, the whole act of it is considering everyone's vested interest and considering, like, how can we, answer all of the needs of all of the people involved, even the ones I don't agree with. But the process of actually making law, practicing law, fighting in court, it has so little to do with Magna Carta law that when I drew near enough to it to get a whiff of the smell, I went, oh, no, I don't want nothing to do with that. I don't want to be a lawyer. I want to be a live streamer who's supposed to play games, but instead just sits here for 4 hours and 15 minutes and talks about nothing in particular. I made it! I'm living the dream! Don't worry, I'll get my chance. We're going to kick off the revolution, all right? Civil War is going to kick off. And then I'm going to take over this area of Detroit. All right? I'm going to be the block boss. I'm going to be the kingpin, all right? 11th Precinct, fucking Ronin Pawn Town, baby. And then I'll start legislating. I'll start writing the laws. Put up, cyclone fencing and barbed wire. If you want to come into my district, you got to agree to do these things. You got to agree to be these things. And by the way, here's a pistol because you're going to need it if you ever leave my district. I am the Ronin Pawn. I'll see you back here this Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Pawn out. Looks like Twitch's sub thing is broken. Yeah, what's new?